So a very good morning to you guys. How are you all today? I see a lot of people here. So there is Harsha, Raj, Ayush, Nilesh, Sameer, Shilpi. So good morning to all of you guys. I think you must be really excited for this session, and if there is no problem with the tech and I am properly audible and visible to you, then could you just give me a thumbs up so that I know that there is no problem and we can begin with the session? Some new people are joining us. There is Bishal, there is Kshitij, there is Kalpesh, Yogesh, Shubham. So lot of people guys waiting for your thumbs up. Okay, I see one thumbs up by Manit Lumba. Some more thumbs up. Okay, so I think we can start with the session. So once again, a very good morning to all of you guys. As you all know, I'm your mentor Mansi Anand, and in these sessions called RBI 24/7, we try to discuss some important concepts that can help us to prepare for our exams, right? And before moving to question number 1 for today, I would like to ask you to subscribe to our channel. Subscribing to our channel can provide you with access to a lot of good content, and pressing this bell icon which is flashing on the screen, it can help you to stay in touch with us and get all the notifications regarding different updates, right? So are you ready for question number 1? Okay, here is your question number 1, and it says dash is the process that governments go through to purchase work, supplies or services from companies. Let's see who comes up with a correct answer. Okay, let me just refresh the comments. It's a simple question and I hope to see correct answers. Okay, Ayush comes up with an answer and he says D. Runu says D. Let's see if someone else thinks differently. Okay, Ayush has changed his answer to E. Shivani says E. Some more votes for D. And Akash Kavade says E. Ishita says D. So okay, I see a tilt towards D, with some people saying C as well and E as well, right? So let's move on to the option. The correct option is E, public procurement. So all those of you who answered as public procurement, you guys are absolutely right. So guys, try to understand this definition. This is the process governments go through to purchase. So if you know that there is also a procurement department in companies and as well. So what does this procurement department do? So whatever the things the company has to buy, be it raw materials or stationery, so basically making purchases is known as procurement. Procurement means availing or getting something, right? So if a company's procurement department purchases things, similar goes with governments. Governments, when they procure something, when they purchase something, that means they are doing public procurement, because public means related to the entire public and governments, they work for the welfare of the public. That is why public procurement or procuring the things or the materials which are going to be used in the process of public welfare, right? So a very simple question. So I think, okay, Runu is asking what is the difference between PPP and public procurement? Okay, so public-private partnership means a venture where the public sector and private sector, they both are in partnership. So there can be different models of it. So if you remember, we have also studied some models, the hybrid annuity model and the turnover model. So we have also studied some models under which the government sector, that is the public sector, and the private sector, they come together or they collaborate for provision of some basic facilities, and for this the private sector is going to be compensated. But public procurement, see, try to understand, procurement simply means making purchases. When the government is making any purchase of any good or service, that is procurement, whereas PPP means collaborating on a venture, right? So I hope now you are clear with the difference, because I saw a lot of people saying D as well. That is why I think it is very important to differentiate between the two. Now we talk about private procurement, because I saw some answers for C as well. Private procurement means private companies procuring, just as I told you that the companies, they have a procurement department, right? So I hope now we are clear with the terms, and I think there would be no confusion between A and B. They mean development. Okay. Public procurement refers to the purchases by governments and state-owned enterprises of goods, services and works. So this can be a purchase of goods, materials or services or works. So as public procurement accounts for a substantial portion of taxpayers' money, governments are expected to carry it out efficiently. Obviously, how is the government going to get money for procuring something, for procuring materials or services? By the taxpayers' money or the revenues they earn by collecting tax, right? So that is the taxpayers' money that the government is going to spend. So it has a responsibility to spend it judicially and with high standards of conduct in order to ensure high quality of service delivery and safeguard the public interest, right? So guys, you must have seen many a times we come across scams that when a project is going to be start for public welfare motive, what happens is usually governments they give money to their officials for procuring stuff. Obviously, let's say there is a location where a road has to be made. So the political representative of that area, let's say the MLA, is going to get funds from the government to procure materials, arranging for all the cement or rocks or sand or whatever the construction material is required, right? So sometimes we hear in newspapers that what they do is they use substandard material but charge for good standard materials, right? So this should not be done because they are using the taxpayers' money. They should maintain the standards of quality, right? Okay. So goal of public procurement: award timely and cost-effective contracts to qualified contractors, suppliers and service providers for provision of goods. So if government is contracting with different entities like contractors, suppliers, they are availing their services for getting a thing or a purpose fulfilled. So this public procurement, this is done in accordance with the principles and procedures that are established in public procurement rules. So it is not like government can do whatever they want. They have to follow certain rules and regulations. So who are the beneficiaries in this case? All the inhabitants of a country, the people living in the country, they are the beneficiaries, because if a road is going to be made or if a highway is going to be built, a dam is going to be constructed, then the public is going to have a benefit of all these things. That is why they are the beneficiaries. Through public goods and services and provided in the form of transportation system, public utilities like public toilets or parks, educational systems, medical services, facilities, among others. So for all these things, government has to do public procurement. So it is governed by some public procurement rules. In most countries, there is a law that governs procurement of goods and services and works with public funds, as I just told you. These rules set the basis for managing procurement and the various methods, different methods that the governments can use under different circumstances, right? So public procurement must also adhere to certain principles. So guys, there is also recently there was a news in Live Mint about how RBI is thinking to change the guidelines regarding the NPA price discovery, right? So under that, there was a name of a method that was used called the Swiss challenge method, right? We are not discussing it now. We are going to discuss it in the upcoming sessions. Till then, I would suggest you read it and then we are going to cover it, right? It would be easier for you if you come a little bit of prepared. If you don't, then don't worry, we are going to discuss it anyhow. The process should be open to public scrutiny depending on the procurement method used. So this public procurement procedure, since they make heavy use of public funds, they should be transparent and accountable to the public. Their use by the government should be accountable to the public, right? So I think we are clear with this question and we can move ahead to the next question. Okay, so there is question number 2, which says the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs this must be and on June 8 launched its flagship program Dash at Bengaluru, at Chennai, paving the way for technology supported faster customs clearance of the imported goods. Let's see who gives the correct answer. So I already see some answers flashing up. Yogesh Kumar says D, that is on tap customs. Most votes for C, that is Turant customs. So Soham Rathore says D. Okay, a huge number of votes for C with 1 or 2 votes for D. Let's see what the correct answer is. So the majority is right and the correct option is D, Turant customs. They are this is the flagship program which has been launched by CBIC on June 8, that means this Monday, at Bangalore and at Chennai. Now, what is the meaning of this program and what is it gonna do? So this would get completed by December 31st this year, right? And the first phase would cover imports of mechanical, electrical, electronic machineries at the ports, airports, ICDs of Bangalore and Chennai. So guys, as simple as that, Turant customs means faceless clearance or clearance without making much use of human interaction but mechanizing or automating all the customs procedure, right? So whenever someone is importing goods from other countries, they have to follow certain procedures, they have to go through some documentation. So government is trying to shorten that time up and make this process faster by automating the mechanism, right? So CBIC, it said that Turant customs would benefit the importers by eliminating routine interface with the customs officers and providing uniformity in assessment across the country. So when currently it is a flagship program and धीरे धीरे they will try कि ये सारी country में extend कर दिया जाए and this is extended to the whole country, right? So this is going to benefit importers because this is going to shorten the time length of all the procedures that they have to follow, basically reducing the formalities that they have to fulfill. This would reduce the transaction costs and eliminate the practice of port shopping for favorable assessments, right? After under this umbrella of Turant customs, the CBIC promises the trade a faceless, contactless and paperless customs clearance experience. So faceless because they are going to be the machines are going to be used rather than humans. Contactless because they do not have to communicate with a certain customs officer, and after that paperless because they are trying to limit or minimize the formalities which are required. The Indirect Tax Board also said these steps include self-registration of goods on the system by importers, automated clearances of bills of entry, digitization of bills of entry. So probably they would be able to access that bills of entry on their phones or any sort of technology medium. Paperless processing by uploading the documents on the electronic e-Sanchit platform. Also, all communications between importers and customs officer would be done electronically through IceGate portal, right? So this is a portal where they can communicate with the customs officer. The importers, they can communicate with the customs officer. So Turant customs mega reform for ease of doing business, right? Okay, so can we move ahead to the next question for today? So moving on to the third question. So here is your third question, guys. Just give me a second, let me refresh the comments. Okay, so the third question here says the existing norms of the market regulator for mutual funds require at least dash investors to run a scheme, while a single investor is not allowed to hold more than dash % of the fund's corpus, right? So this talks about the existing norms. Let's see who gives the correct answer. Let me just refresh the comments. I'm not able to see your comments. Just give me a few seconds. Okay, I think now they are available. Yes, now your comments, I can see them. Okay, Harsha says C. Soham says C. Lot of votes for C. Shivani says A. Gaurav says B. Ishita says A, Akash says B, Shubham says A. So let's see, there is a lot of variety in your answer with a tilt towards C. Let's see the correct answer, and it is A. So all those of you, Ishita, Shubham, and there was one more person who answered as A. Yogesh Kumar Sharma. So you guys are absolutely right who have answered as A. So currently the here you can see, okay, the existing norms of market regulator, that is SEBI, for mutual funds require at least 20 investors. That minimum there should be 20 investors to run a scheme, while a single investor is not allowed to hold more than 25% of the fund's corpus. Minimum 20 investors, and they should have they should have a maximum holding of 25%, not more than it. So we have discussed the meaning of corpus previously in sessions. So corpus means the total funds available with the fund which they can invest, right? So a single investor can hold only 25 till the extent of 25% of the total funds corpus, right? And at minimum 20 investors should be there. After that, now what new is happening here? SEBI is considering a series of steps to reduce redemption risks, including increasing number of investors and a maximum threshold for investment per investor in a scheme. Guys, here I am going to ask you a question. Why do you think that increasing the number of investors and a maximum threshold for investment per investor in a scheme? So basically, first question, why increasing the number of investors do you think would reduce the redemption risk that the mutual funds face? Right. So SEBI is thinking that we should increase it to 50, the number of investors from 20 to 50. So why do you think it is going to help to reduce redemption pressure that the mutual funds face? So Gaurav is saying increase liquidity. Let's wait for some more answers, guys. Try to think. There would be more number of investors, right? So the risks are going to be more divided. Naveen comes up with an answer and he says to distribute the funds among investors in a more balanced manner. A perfectly nice answer. Shivani says maximum threshold to reduce concentration risk. Aman says to lower the risk. So most of you have good answers. So basically, so this was a question asked by someone in the comments. So I hope you watch it and your doubts get cleared. So that person asked that how increasing the number of investors is going to help mutual funds to reduce the redemption pressure that they face. So if the number of investors would be increased, then the risk would be diversified or divided among more number of investors. That is why the risk that one person faces, that one investor faces, is going to be lower. And what happens if there are less number of investors? That means they are holding a good amount of funds corpus, and if they redeem their investment, then the fund is going to be impacted. But if there are more investors, and now these 50 investors, out of these 50 investors, 1 or 2 redeem their investment, there is going to be a lesser impact on the mutual fund, because since more number of investors, that means less percentage of shareholding of the corpus, right? That is why the redemption by these investors is going to reduce the redemption pressure. So most of you say diversified risk because the risk is spread. So it is good to see when you guys are able to answer questions like that. So I hope the person who asked this comment, I'm sorry I don't remember your name, but I hope you get your answer. Okay, so done. Okay. As institutional investors, they invest high amounts. Withdrawal by them triggers redemption stress, and in the interim, SEBI has also allowed AMCs to invest an additional 15% in government securities and treasury bills to manage redemption pressure in credit risk funds, corporate bonds, and public sector undertakings. So they have also allowed AMCs to invest an additional 15%. So I think we have discussed this in one of our previous sessions. If you want the link of that session, do mention it in the comments. We are going to reply to it, right? So this point we have already discussed in the previous session. Okay, Shahana Parveen is asking redemption. Redemption means the investors, they try to exit their investments, right? Let's say there is a mutual fund and you have put some of your money into that mutual fund, but now you think that mutual fund is not doing good, or the mutual fund is putting your money into some of the companies which are failing, right? Or one of the company in which mutual fund has invested goes bust, defaults, right? So in that case, you think that I'm going to redeem my investment. I don't want this my money to be invested in this mutual fund anymore. So you talk to the mutual fund that I want my money back. So in that case, you are redeeming your investment or pulling out your money or exiting your investment position, right? So I hope, Shahana, you are clear with your answer. So I'm telling you the meaning of redemption in this context. Usually it means clearing of a liability as well, right? But in this context, redemption by investors means pulling their money back, right? Moving ahead to the next question for today, and before moving to question number 4, I would like to ask you guys to join our Telegram group. On this group, you can post all your doubts and queries, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. So moving ahead to the next question. Okay, so here is the question number 4, which says the government imposes a dash on zero tax companies. So there is a sort of tax which is imposed on zero tax companies. You have to tell which tax is this. Let's see who answers correctly. Let me just refresh the comments. Guys, give me a few seconds to refresh. Okay. Let's see who answers correctly. Okay, I see a lot of answers. Ayush says C. Most of you say C, with Abhishek Pandey saying B, Rakesh Kumar saying A. So let's move on to the correct option and see what is the correct answer. The correct answer is C, minimum alternate tax. So all those of you who answered as C, you guys are absolutely right. So now what happens is, companies, they try to minimize the taxes that they have to pay to government by taking advantage of many things like depreciation, deductions, exemptions, etc. from the government, or some investments they have made. So basically whatever exemptions are available to them, they try to make use of them to reduce their tax, right? So many a times what happens is, a company which is making profit and there is some tax, if it would not have used the exemptions, it would have to pay tax to government, but now it is making use of exemptions. That is why it is coming to a zero tax. That means the payable tax is reduced by the exemption to zero, right? So the government imposes a minimum alternate tax as an advance tax on these companies. This makes the companies give at least a minimum amount of tax. So on these companies, the profit making companies whose tax liability come to zero after making the exemption or deduction, a minimum amount of tax is imposed on them. So basically companies that are popularly known as zero tax companies show profits as per the Companies Act, but minimize the tax outgo as they display the income that is zero or negative under the provisions of the Income Tax Act. So their taxable income comes out to be zero. With MAT, they have to pay a minimum amount to tax. So basically government imposes this to bring them under the purview of taxation. So here you can see some legal point about minimum alternate tax. So on September 20, 2019, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announced the reduction of minimum alternate tax for companies from 18.5% to 15% for those who continue to avail exemptions and incentives. So government is saying, okay, if you make use of these exemptions and incentives, do make the use, but you will have to pay a minimum tax, right? Tushar, most of them are made up just to create options for the question. Yes, all of them are made up except the correct answer. Okay, so guys, can we move ahead to the last question for today? And here is your last question for today. Customer pays rupees 10,000 in advance for a custom designed product. The seller does not realize the 10,000 of revenue until its work on the product is complete. Which principle is being followed here? So this question talks about accounting principle. You have to tell the principle which is being followed in the statement given, right? Harsha, what it means is zero tax means that they are making profit, they are showing profit, but they use the exemptions which are available by the government. So government provides certain exemptions to give some sort of tax benefit to the regular taxpayers or to people paying taxes, right? But sometimes they make such investments and bring down their taxable income to zero, right? So that is why they don't have to pay any tax. That is why they are known as zero tax companies. So this happens sometimes, many a times. Many who have more income than the minimum threshold, they fill their ITR, but with the use of the due exemptions, they can bring down their payment of tax liability to zero, right? Okay, I see a lot of answers. Shivani says A, Kavina Shah says A, Vishal Gupta says B. So I think I see a lot of answers. Harsha says B or D. Okay, this question, so let me tell you the correct option. The correct option is B, that is the revenue realization or revenue recognition principle. So this question was asked by Jaspreet in one of the comments. So Jaspreet, I hope you're watching this video, and if not now, I hope you watch it and your doubts get cleared. So he asked me to explain the revenue recognition principle. So revenue realization or revenue recognition, this is a principle which says that the seller of a good or service is going to realize the revenue that he has received only when services or goods have been provided in return. So look at this example which is given in the question. It says a customer pays 10,000 in advance for a custom designed product, right? So let's say there is a tailor and that tailor has received rupees 10,000 in advance by a customer to stitch a shirt, right? But do you think this 10,000 is that tailor's earning? So this 10,000 is not his earning until that tailor provides the shirt back to the customer. So once the shirt goes to the customer, then the tailor is going to realize this 10,000 rupees as his revenue, right? Because unless and until the shirt goes to the customer, this 10,000 which has been paid by customer to tailor is sort of a liability for tailor, because he has not fulfilled or he has not provided the goods or services which he should provide in return of this 10,000. So जब तक आप एक कॉन्ट्रैक्ट को फुलफिल नहीं करोगे तब तक वो आपकी अर्निंग थोड़ी है, तब तक तो वो आपकी लाइबिलिटी है, राइट? So you have to, when the manufacturer or the seller of goods or services that provides, so if the seller of goods and services, that seller provides the goods or services which he is responsible to, then only he can realize the amount, right? So this is the revenue recognition principle, that recognize or realize the revenue only when services or goods have been provided in return for that revenue increase. So here there is a case of advance tax. But let's say what happens is there is a customer and he is a regular customer of this tailor. He goes to the tailor and tells him कि भैया मेरे लिए तो एक शर्ट आप स्टिच कर दो, and stitch this shirt for me and I am going to pay you later, right? But now what happens is, do you think when is this tailor going to recognize his earning? When the customer pays or when the shirt is ready to be delivered to the customer? So tailor ने शर्ट बनाकर कस्टमर के घर भेज दिया, बट अभी उसकी पेमेंट नहीं हुई है, तो do you think कि टेलर रेवेन्यू को है? Because he has already sent the shirt to customer's house, but do you think now he can realize the revenue? Yes, he can, because he has fulfilled his part of the job, he has fulfilled his responsibility. That is why now his earning is rupees 10,000 which they have contracted to, right? So the customer might pay it later, let's say after 1 week, after 2 days, but the tailor can recognize when the shirt is sent to the customer because the tailor's responsibility is fulfilled. I hope now we are clear with this example. Let me just shed some brief light on other examples as well. So conservative let me just shed some light on the other options as well. First is conservative principle. Conservatism simply means no matter how much, do not recognize the profits early but recognize all your losses. Full disclosure, provide all the material information in your accounting statements so that the financial position of company is clear to the investors. Matching principle, which says whenever you earn a revenue, its associated cost should be put into accounts in the similar year. Consistency, the rules that you decide to follow before making the accounts, you have to be consistent on them and do not change them unless and until there is some special requirement, right? So revenue recognition, feature of accrual accounting, requires that revenues are recognized on the income statement in the period when realized and earned, not necessarily when the cash is received. Cash can be received in advance and cash can also be received at a later date. Earned revenue accounts for goods and services that have been provided and performed. Revenue generating activity must be fully or essentially complete for it to be included in revenue during the respective accounting period. Tushar, I have briefly explained you. If you feel any confusion among these, you can ask in the comments. This is the concept that you should only recognize the revenue when the business has substantially completed the earning process and fulfilled its part of the contract, right? So guys, these were the 5 questions for today. I hope you understood them well and there are no doubts regarding them, but if still there are any doubts, you can always mention them as the comments on the video, and I'll see you tomorrow with some new set of questions. So if you have learned anything new from this video, then don't forget to hit the like button. I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, keep your studies carrying on, take care of your health, and thank you for being here. Have a nice day.